Hello Sounders, it's Mick here, and it's about 24 hours after our first home league game ends in defeat. I can't do better than quote a wise old football bird I've connected with over many years in Danny Baker. Like us, Dan's an old school football nut whose club regularly put him through the mill, and which, like ours, gave him a first day league win away from home, and then, like ours, they got beaten at home. For the first time, he said, for the first time in years, we've got a good side, a manager. And yet a lively but not brilliant Middlesbrough ran riot. Thank God for beer. Championship football after 2 games, Sounders? So they got beaten by Middlesbrough, we got beaten by Norwich. And the team his beloved Millwall went to and overcame on day 1 of the season was, of course, Norwich. And they would have been stung by that start. And they came to us determined to start their points gathering, determined to avenge the hiding we gave them last season up there, or at least to give us more respect than they did that day, and determined not to allow us to press them into mistakes. And they played solidly all over the park. Let's face it, they were the dominant side for an hour. But Sounders, we played 2 games and lost the second. That's all. We hardly need to panic. Like some fans I've read since 2:30 on Saturday afternoon seem determined to do. I can't believe how quickly they leap into the fray to condemn and criticise. It's almost like there's a pent-up anger in some people, seemingly frustrated by the steady improvement that we've all seen at Pompey on all fronts. Waiting for a defeat, and then almost with glee, with pleasure, spraying social media with invective, which they've been sitting on, hatching, nurturing, suppressing inside themselves all summer, conceivably. Instead, it was like this. We had a disappointing lunchtime last Saturday. The team that took the field, having not played together against Reading, were undefeated. The team that took the field for the league game, they were in the league, they were undefeated pre-season. If you don't count the Reading game, they hadn't conceded a goal, for goodness sake, that lot. Reading should have been a warning. But the confidence that had built up over the past few months seemed to have disappeared when we came out to play against Norwich. We started slowly. It's that line between confidence and complacency is a narrow one. So I'm not making excuses. We were well beaten by a more powerful and determined and well organised Norwich. But actually, as you'll see as I complete this piece, the differences were pretty narrow, really. They shocked our team, Norwich, and they shocked our crowd with us, me, you, with 2 such simple goals, which no one on our side of the fence expected that we could or would concede. Eventually we got over that, but it took us an hour, and we were simply unable to take our chances once we rediscovered some rhythm and confidence in the final third of the game. So I think no complaints. We've just got to learn how to get the best out of ourselves and to start well, But listen, we're 180 minutes into a 9-month season, Sounders, for goodness sake. So, after the Reading Carabao Cup disappointment, I took some stick. I have to just confess this to you from some of you Sounders. People thought that I was too negative about the players who played in that Carabao Cup game. They pointed out that some of them were making debuts or coming back from injury, or there were some who were playing out of position. I accept all that. But it did cause quite a lot of complaints about my comments on individual players, and now I'm going to do it all over again with regard to the team that played Norwich City. So I should first of all explain I'm simply one of you Sounders, a big fan of Pompey. I like all the players. I genuinely like all the players. Anyone who signs for Pompey, I like, and I never write any of them off. Well, until it's very obvious. I simply comment on what I see on the day, and I'm not a coach or really an expert. I'm simply a lover of the great game and a student of people, including footballers. They're interesting people, and they all react differently under different pressures. So, with you, I look at the team, liking them all because they're Pompey, and wanting them all to succeed, which in reality is impossible, Sounders, and will never happen for all of them. So, we start off with Nicholas Schmidt. For the first time I can remember, he looked a little bit uncomfortable, I felt, out there on the grass at Fratton Park against Norwich. Possibly the discomfort was caused by his own defence, who seemed tentative. But his distribution wasn't as accurate or certain as usual. The big man seemed simply not at his genial best, but certainly not at fault, in my opinion, for the goals that he conceded. Jordan Williams came under quite a lot of criticism post-match, I noticed. I thought he did okay. But Zach Swanson has a lot of support in his challenge for the right-back slot. And the defending for the second goal, in which John Williams was sort of involved, but not involved enough to prevent it. But it was generally feeble. I haven't watched it back, to be honest, and so I can't really pick out anyone in particular for being implicated. But I think Jordan and Regan Poole were. Regan Poole, you have to love his desire and you love his passion, but sometimes there is a sort of last-ditch quality about his defending. I'm going to say certain desperation sometimes enters his game, when you'd rather see him with more time and control in his play. It was actually genuinely a shock, not just for me. It silenced pretty much everyone, if we're honest, for a little while. It was a shock to see our centre backs caught out twice in the first 15 minutes. I'd like to think it won't happen again. But Conor Shaughnessy was caught out into watching Harry Darling's simple header from the free kick on 6 minutes. And then it was Darling's, if I may call him Darling. I don't really like to call him Darling. He's no darling of mine. But it was his long throw and the flick on to the far post that caused the second. So 2 set-piece goals But more than that, I worried afterwards when we learnt from Liam Manning, Norwich's manager, that he'd perceived weakness in the way we dealt at Oxford with the long throw. I mean, Oxford went overboard on long throws, it seemed to me. It was their sort of main method of attack against Pompey. And that Manning said that Norwich in training last week had worked on Harry Darling's capability of throwing long balls to employ that threat at Fratton Park. The fact that it worked is a worry for John Mousinho, because all clubs will now surely give it a go against us. And that's a crude device that really has got to be stopped. It's not an elegant or an attractive strategy, the long throw-in. It's certainly not new, but we're making it effective, and we're going to cop it again and again until we avoid that happening. Back to the players. Conor Ogilvie wasn't able to impose himself, as he so often does, in defence or attack. I do actually sort of sidetrack this, but I do actually sort of think that Conor Ogilvie had a really quite a slow start to last season. And I hope that doesn't mean he's going to have a slow start to this season. Most memorable about his game, because he was unable to impose himself in defence or attack as he normally does. The most notable thing was his penalty shout, which was a key moment in the game. I've watched it a few times. I don't believe Conor Ogilvie is a cheat, as Norwich players and indeed the referee, because he booked him, were suggesting. He did appear to me to get caught, but I also acknowledge he did go down over dramatically, really. And a referee who's given one pen is unlikely to give another soon afterwards, especially if it's a sort of drama queen sort of one. However, John Mousinho's pretty adamant and was very upset about it afterwards. And so I'm just going to say that Ogilvie's not a cheat, whatever. The midfield against Norwich has created massive debate in the last 24 hours. I'm going to defend both the incumbents against Norwich of the midfield positions. I think John Swift is shouldering responsibility as the new skipper for marshalling, well, until Marlon's back, for marshalling midfield. His strength is his clean, efficient, attractive passing. I've no complaints about his work rate either, which was heavily criticised by West Brom fans. You'll remember I know one very well. He told me all about it from last season, and the complaints, the moans about John Swift. I haven't seen any sort of likely laziness about him at all. I think he's been wholly committed and admirable, and taken the captain's responsibility to his heart. The question over his partnership with Andre Dezelle is really whether it should continue, because whether they can complement each other, or whether they seek the same role. And I don't feel qualified at the moment to make a decision about that. I personally, and here I'm going out on a limb because I know this isn't going to be popular with some of you sounders, but I personally gave Andre Dezelle my man of the match for Pompey on Saturday. I thought he worked so hard to get Pompey back into the game, and constantly breaking up attacks and creating attacks. I thought he was excellent. But I know that's not something that's shared by many of you. It's just how I feel. I don't think I admit I don't think he's going to score many goals. And it is certainly true. Swift had one fine effort that struck the bar with 10 minutes to go. But I liked Dazelle in this game. I don't know what you think. I did. You will all agree, though, that the sight of Callum Lang leaving the pitch was depressing, given his similar problems last season. Maybe we should have taken the money for him when it was on offer. No, I don't really mean it. I'm hoping, I don't know yet, I haven't heard the news, but I'm hoping Callum Lang's injury won't be a long one, and I like him anyway. He's a bright spark. But there is a worry that he's becoming injury prone in the calf area. It was interesting seeing Adrian Segacic taking his position wide right after Lang left the pitch. Segacic, I'll learn how to say his name in a minute. Segacic had a pretty quiet first half, I thought. In fact, I'm certain that I saw him shaking his head a bit and looking frustrated at times with the lack of the ball. I think he did a lot of running and didn't get the ball where he wanted it. That's all changed, obviously, when he went out wide right, because it was easy to find him then, and the team did. And he used the ball to great effect from that position. And indeed, you could almost say he became our match saver. I mean, his eye-catching goal, which has quietened even the moaners about the game, have been silent actually about Segacic and that goal. It was a fine goal, and the boy's got great potential. It's great. It's good that, I'm sorry to use great 3 times in one line, but it's really good for all of us to see that here is an instant success in the recruitment stakes, and for very little and for very small outlay. It's very, very clever that we've discovered him. In contrast, I thought Josh Murphy never really got into his game against Norwich. That wasn't for lack of trying, and he had the occasional trademark run and a few off target, sometimes well off target shots on goal, but it really wasn't Josh Murphy's day, nor, I'm afraid, was it Colby Bishop's day. Sounders, anyone can miss a penalty. All I would say is he didn't look confident. I didn't think he looked comfortable and confident taking the ball, waiting around. Colby will always have a place in our heart. He will always be a Fratton favourite. I think he does need some competition up front. Maybe that's in the pipeline. And maybe there's a case for someone else taking penalties. You will know the statistics better than me of how many he's failed to convert. The substitutes against Norwich all, it seemed to me, provided a lift. But that was partly because Norwich tired were tiring and made their own substitutions and brought on less competent players, I suspect. But it was that terrific group of substitutes that, and the wonderful support of the crowd that got hold of the game in the last quarter and in time added on. Zach Swanson, as I said ages ago in this ramble, always brings good energy, and he did when he came on. Tom Waddingham looked more effective and comfortable alongside Colby Bishop than on his own in that disappointment of a game against Reading in the Cup. When he was pretty much on his own, and it showed. It was tough. Here he regained some confidence, I thought, and looked and added to the strength of our attempts to get back into the game. And Florian Bianchino showed he can bring really effective competition in wide areas, as his recruiters hoped and planned. And I thought the boy looked clever and strong. He won us a penalty during his time on the pitch, and it was encouraging to see that he's getting to grips with the journey to Fratton Park. So, all in all, Sounders, this was not a disaster. It was a setback, but not a disaster. And, you know, we're going to cheer up as the week goes on. I'm sure there's going to be some good news coming. And anyway, let's face it. We missed a penalty. We had another one disallowed. We had Poole had a point-blank shot on goal blocked. Swift hit the underside of the bar. We could have had a point, and that wouldn't have been a bad result. So, Sounders, as Danny, whom I mentioned at the beginning, said about football, thank God for beer. And play up, Pompey.